Rahbat Muisar, Rahbat. We are back. We're back with another discussion on Wu Sabat. We are back. I'm just getting set up. Let's see. I'm trying to get set up for this class. Yeah, just give me a moment. Give me a moment. Okay. I hope all can see my screen. I'm sharing my screen, but Rahubat Muisar Rahubat. Okay, what else I want to do here? Just real quick before we get started, I just want to do a real quick namaz, which is prayer for those who do not know. Before we get going here, and that screen didn't turn over. Hold on. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. Just trying to show. Window, entire screen. Okay, let's see. Now let's go here. Let's go here. Okay, so that should be sharing that screen. That should be doing. All right, we're all back. Real quick namaz prayer, and then we'll get started. So greetings, Rahbat, to everyone. It's been a while. I know it's been a while. It's almost a year now since we've been on NoopooH Live. It's been a long while, and we have so much to cover, so much to go over. And I apologize for taking this long, but we're back. We intend to post and put information up every week, and hopefully we can begin to make a difference as we've always started with our agenda and mission in Wu-Sabat, to make a change for the better, right? For the conditions that we're dealing with as Nagado people over the planet. Wu-Sabat is the way. It is truly the way. So let's get started with the prayer, our namaz, real quick. Baru, 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 Nabab, Nathar, Muqtar, Na'ut, Muqdad, Badad, Batah, Na'ut, Muqlas, Badad, Yanun. Okay. Pa Sawat Wu Pa Tarak. Panen Safa Kawun. Pa Sawat Wu Pa Tarak. Z Kawuna Nazula Laha Ankum. Manah Sabat Wu Sa'at. Amah Hadayan Shafa'un. Manah Salafu Wu Nataru. Aju Laya Nafasukum. Afuk Shana Kawun Kuma. Pa Sawat Wu Pa Tarak. This book is the truth and the way. It was sent down for you all from Sabat Wu-Sabat, star constellation, as a guidance and a healing. From your ancestors and overseers, return to your own, accept what is yours, the truth and the way. And nun tawa ankum laha panan shafe'un wu alaj. And nun tawa ankum laha nasuinun. And nun tawa ankum laha ashuk. Ankum ata salafu nun. And nun ata kharat ukum. And nun talub nasar kuma. Anun talub nasar kuma. And so nun sayim nataro. And so nun salafu nun. Anun ata musba'u. We thank you all for this healing and cure. We thank you all for not forgetting us. We thank you all for Ashuk. You are our ancestors. We are your children. We seek your help. We seek your help. Help us, divine overseers. Help us, our ancestors. We are Musba'u. Anun. Atun. Atun. Amun. Jennifer. Alrighty then. Okay. We wow. We haven't been as I said before, posting for quite some time now. There's so much data and so much information out there for us to get out there to the family and to help you guys on your journey in the culture of Wu Sabat. Wu Sabat is the way, as we've been talking about this since we've been teaching. Now, for those who do not know me, my name is Peti Sina Tebtu A, and I've been over a 35-year student teacher of the profound doctrine of the master teacher, known to us as Panabab Yananan, also known as Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, who has been teaching us our ancient culture. We identify as Wu Sabat, also known as Wu Nawab. This was the culture of our ancestors in ancient Kemet, some call it Egypt, ancient Kush, ancient Nubia. The culture was Wu Sabat. And what is Wu Sabat? Wu Sabat is about us living in harmony with natural nature, being in tune with natural nature, living according to the principles of Ma'at, based on the wisdom of the Hutwi, right? Our whole culture was centered around these core principles, right? The principles of Ma'at and the wisdom of the Hutwi. For those who are not familiar with those principles, we did lectures on it. So definitely check those lectures that we did on the teachings of Ma'at, because a lot of people talk about the Ma'at and the 42 negative confessions. That is the essence of the principles, but that's not what those principles are specifically. The core principles of Ma'at is dealing with order, balance, justice, and righteousness. Those are the core principles of Ma'at. The goal is to get to an existence of truth. And once you're in existence of truth, you're in existence of order and harmony, right? And so this is the essence of what Ma'at is. And the wisdom of the Hutri is the knowledge base. Existence, the first principle of the Hutri is all is mind, right? Existence is consciousness. And the goal of all children of Wu Sabat is to be in tune with this divine consciousness, which is nature itself, existence itself, to live according to the principles of nature. And the wisdom of the Hutri teaches us the principles of nature, teaches us the rules of nature, the laws of nature. And we adhere to those rules and laws based on the principles of Ma'at, right? So they're inseparable. That's why in our culture, in our ancient culture, Ma'at and the Hutri were husband and wife. They were a pair, okay? And these were the core principles within our culture as Nagaro people, African people, woolly hair, melanated people. This was the original culture that was brought to this planet from the star systems of Sahu and Septu, Cyrus and Orion. It's what the Europeans call it. We call it Saha, which is translated as Orion, and Septu, which is translated as Cyrus. Those are the star systems that we came from, that we migrated here to this planet Earth, our ancestors who still exist in those realms. And the goal of us here as Sabians, as children of the Natharu, is to make contact with our ancestors to reestablish our continual community, right, between us here on this planet and our ancestors in the stars. This is why the master teacher came to the planet, incarnated, to re-teach us or re-educate us in how to make contact with our ancestors, something we overstood in ancient times. And we've lost sight of that, of this way of life, since we've been, under European culture, European domination, specifically for the last 500 years. So we've gotten away from our original way because we're living foreign cultures, and anyone who understands European culture, you get so engulfed in their way of life and their way of thinking, and you lose sight of who you are. You lose sight of our way of doing things, that we come from a very advanced and high culture. Anyone who studies ancient Kush, ancient Egypt, Kemet, you can see that we come from a really advanced culture. Something they talk about in Ancient Aliens, on the History Channel. All of that stuff they say it's mythology, but it's really actual facts. And this is what the master teacher came to explain in detail. And as students of Wu Sabat, our job is to help you, those on the journey, to make contact and what one must do in order to make contact with your ancestors, right? So that's what these discussions are all about. And the challenge in that journey is something we talk about that's a challenge, is that makes it so difficult for us to make contact, which is what we call the heart center. Now, what is the heart center? What is that all about? The heart center is the seat of what? Your heart, which is the seat of your emotions. But we're not talking about, when we say your heart center, we're not talking about your physical heart. What we're actually talking about is your spiritual heart, which links to your desires. And anyone who, as we understand, living here in Western culture, the whole society is based on everyone living according to their desires, live life to the fullest. And that may be good on one level, but it's bad on another level, because you get so caught up in trying to obtain your desires that you lose sight of your own purpose and existence. Humans don't understand their purpose. Humans do not really understand their existence, or why they are even on this planet, why the planet floats through space. They've lost sight of their own origins. And so if you spend so much of your energy and your whole life seeking your desires, right? By the time you're an elder, 60, 70, 80 years old, you spent your whole time on this planet doing that, and you don't understand nothing about your spiritual existence. You understand nothing about who your origin and what your origins are. And that's what the master teacher came to interrupt, came to help you realize, hey, listen, it's one thing you getting caught up in living your life as humans. It's another thing not acknowledging who you really are as a human, that you have a greater level of awareness. You have a greater level of ancestry and history and origin. And that is something you should be aware of, right? So in African culture, it was always about making contact with your ancestors, communicating with your ancestors. Why? To help us make decisions. When we look at the planet today, the world is in chaos. The world is in total chaos, and we argue it's in chaos because we've gotten away from our original way of living, our original culture, our original life. This is why it's in chaos. And the only way, how can I say, the only way we can fix this chaos is for us to get back to how we used to do things, how we used to live as a people. That's the only way we can get back to our original way of doing things, right? Our lifestyle of not being in chaos. That's the key. And so the heart center, something the master taught us about. Now, this particular scroll I'm looking at, this is a book called What and Where is How. Where am I? Page 62. Let me go here. Hold on for 1 second. This is the scroll. It's called What and Where is How. This particular scroll, I believe, came out in 2002. The master teacher had published this particular book. In fact, this is a reprint. I think this might be the 3rd edition of this particular scroll on What and Where is How, right? And it's very important because as we all know, we live in a world dominated by what we call the Abrahamic religions, whether it be Christians or Muslims or Jews, and they all talk about how, and what this book is teaching is that hell is really your desires. Your negative desires is what puts you in a state of hell. It's not this invisible place that they say you go to in the Bible and you burn under sulfur and brimstone. No, hell is a state of mind. And that's what this particular book is explaining here, that it is a state of mind, that you can control your own reality. You can control your own destiny as a living being, provided you live a life that's in harmony with your nature or natural nature. When you live a life based on your desires, your desire for food, desire for clothing, desire for fame, desire for wealth, desire to be seen, all of the things that motivates the human being, it is their desires that lead them to suffering, something that Buddha talked about, right? It is the desires that leads people to suffering. And so once you learn to get your desires under control, then you can live according to your nature. And what do I mean by that? When one doesn't have their desires under control, you'll eat yourself into obesity. You'll do drugs until your heart gives out. We do things that are detrimental to ourselves when humans live according to their desires, as opposed to having a life based on balance. Everything, and if you want harmony, you have to have balance, right? You take a little bit of this, and you take a little bit of that. You go here, you go there. Everything in existence, if you want harmony now, you have to have balance. When you are led by your desires, it moves you to one level of polarity, right? Either too far to the left, which is ultimate cold, or too far to the right, which is ultimate hot. That type of lifestyle is what leads to the destruction. Existence is about balance. If you want harmony, if you want chaos, then you live life to the fullest, as they teach here in Western culture. But in Wu Sabat, our job is to teach our people that we must get back to the principles of Ma'at, which is about balance. And you can't, balance is being able to make the decisions so that you can have a life of balance. And that comes from judgment, what we call justice, to be able to judge correctly, making judgments, sound decisions. And you can't make judgment or sound decisions without having the right knowledge, which is what we call righteousness, to be right, to make the right decisions. And that's, again, the essence of what Ma'at is all about. But as long as humans are controlled by their heart center, that's what leads to humanity's suffering. And so Wu Sabat is here to correct that. Wu Sabat is here to help you make those corrections, to educate you on how to not allow your heart center to control you, your emotional center, which is our attachments, and humans are completely controlled by their attachments. That's why we see all the chaos in the world, all of the violence, all of the wars, the suffering, the degradation that we see. It's all related to humans being controlled by their heart center, their emotional center, not being able to control their emotions, living according to your emotions and not your intellect. The goal of a Sabian is to live according to your intellect, to make decisions that are intelligence, not just things that you feel. Because you can feel, hey, you love this person, you can feel for this individual, you want to be with this particular individual, but are they good for you? You have to make intelligent decisions. You want to eat that food, you love that food, right? But is it good for you? Use the intellect. The intellect must supersede how you feel. Now, when your feelings matches your intellect, then you're making a beautiful decision. Meaning, when you feel good about something, and with the something you feel good about is actually good for you, it's good, it's a good thing, then your intellect and your feelings are in harmony. But when you have strong emotions for something that's not good for you, then that's out of whack, and you shouldn't make those decisions. Like the reason why people smoke weed, smoke cigarettes, drink alcohol, things that make them feel good, but it's not good for them. That takes you out of harmony. All of that comes by way of the heart center. Because in the heart center, which is the strongest space of emotion, because that's where most of the blood flow in the body. That's why we're calling it. That's where people feel the energy. The blood, through the blood is the spirit. It's in the blood. And the place in the body where the blood builds up the most is in the heart. And that's where you have the most energy coming through, which we call the heart center. And so this particular scroll does a great job of explaining the details of that. You know, the master, you know, he that's what makes it a master, explaining these concepts that we've never heard before. Now, in regards to that, one of the things that we've talked about many times in our discussions is understanding the SMAT circle, right? The SMAT circle. I've discussed this. For those who may not be familiar with it, watch videos, lectures of ours that dealt with the SMAT circle. I highly recommend it. We've done the African, what was the name of those lectures? The African Science of Existence, I believe, lectures we did on that. And that dealt with the SMAT circle. And what it was explaining is that in nature, right, we have different realms in nature that we all exist on. This is called the material realm, or the physical realm of human beings, or the third density, meaning the energy, the elements around us are vibrating at a certain density or a certain rate. It vibrates because everything in nature is vibration, right? And humans on Earth are what we call third density beings, vibrating at a certain frequency. Okay, so when you look at this circle here, you have these numbers, and if you notice, you got 12 on the outside, and you have these other digits within. So you have 3 here, and this is on the bottom. 3 represents for the third density. You go from third to fourth density, fifth density, 6, 7, 8, all the way to 9th density on the top, right? And then it moves down back to 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, back to 3. And this is a cycle. And that's how nature operates. So third density would be like the winter time when things are cold, the energies are weaker. 9th density would be like the summertime when the energies are most potent. That's the realm of the living, versus the 3 ether cycle, which would be the realm of the dead. So during the winter time in the snow, life, vegetation goes dead, right? That's the realm of the dead. Then in the summertime, plants are blossoming, nature's blossoming, flowers blooming, everything is vibrant. People go out in the sun, they go to the beach. That's full of life. That's the realm of the living. So you have the realm of the living and you have the realm of the dead. The cycle that humanity is in right now is what we call the realm of the dead. That's why so much death, suffering, and destruction is on that planet. We're in the realm of the dead. These are something we used to know. We used to understand the cycles within nature, meaning you have planetary cycles like summer, spring, winter, fall, and you have galactic cycles. And the galactic cycles, we call it sun cycles, moon cycles, sun cycle, moon cycle, right? As Africans, we're not the only ones that taught this. The Hindus talk about these cycles. Even the ancient Europeans, the Greeks even talked about these cycles. Anyone who understands the cultures that are rooted in nature, we all understand nature existence is based on cycles, from a planetary perspective all the way to a galactic or universal perspective. And this diagram is a model of that. And I always like to repeat that to remind us we as humans are existing on the third cycle, or the third density cycle, which is a very low vibration. When people talk about extraterrestrials, right, and seeing extraterrestrials, these are beings that are more than likely coming from a higher density or higher dimensions, right? So they come from a planet that's either operating on a 4th density. Some are coming from a planet that are 5th density. Some are coming from realms that are 6th density, and others are coming from realms that all the way up to 9. 9th density is the highest of densities in within nature itself. This is where the origin of our ancestors as Nagatos are ninth density. So when we're communicating with our ancestors and we're saying communicate with your ancestors, you're communicating with ninth density beings. That's who the master teacher represents, because that's where he comes from. He incarnated onto this planet from a ninth density realm. He is a ninth density being and came down to the third density. And again, all our teachings have been to educate us as a people how to make contact with higher density beings, our ancestors who exist on higher densities, so that we can then begin to re-educate ourselves about their existence to correct the problems that we're having here on the planet. Because right now, right, all of our education is from Europeans. Our people every single day are going to European schools and being educated by them, and their society and education system is keeping us bound and trapped in this density, in this realm, in this environment. We must realize we must learn how to make contact with our ancestors. And if we don't learn how to do that, you're going to be stuck down here. One of the things the master says, we're in a reincarnation loop that we keep. When you're born, you mature, you get old, you physically die. And if you don't have any spiritual knowledge, you reincarnate back into this loop, into a third density. And he says that for humans, that can happen to you up to 24,000 times. If each life cycle you never develop any kind of spiritual knowledge and understanding of the higher realms, you keep reincarnating. Anyone who listens to me know I keep repeating this and educating our people about this. As Sabians, first of all, it's very difficult for us to do this in this type of environment. It's very difficult for me. I know it's very difficult for you guys out there who are familiar with developing themselves. That's why the master teacher explained we need to create communities, because in a community, you become stronger. Where we create a community that is designed towards our culture to help us elevate it. But if each individual want to stay in their own little cubby hole, and their own little apartment or home, trying to develop themselves, it's difficult because we're surrounded by all of these distractions that keep us bound to this density, and we never learn how to communicate with our ancestors. Something the master says we must do, because they're watching us. He says, like, if we go to this scroll, now this is a scroll. Hold on, let me put this on page. This is called the Master Secrets, Cycles of Life and Death, number 10. And you go to page, I was on page 16. The master talks about contacting your ancestors. And on page 14, we go paragraph 216. I'm going to read. It says, so Nawapians, it's very important that you keep a positive link with your Nasabu, which is relatives, and our own Salafu, which is ancestors, who are on the other side. They are called familiar spirits. You refer to Deuteronomy in the Bible, and Leviticus talks about familiar spirits, right? Or really family spirits, familiar, family. It's a Latin word, right? Familiar, which is really family. Now, never ever say that your relatives, he or she has gone or departed or left or deceased. These tones push them onward. Always say crossed over, on the other side, in another hajam, which is dimension, and never out of reach. If you open up to them, they can and will hear you. They can and will help to hadui, guide, and sarun, protect. You must learn to shamu, listen to them, and not khafuf, fear them. They are watching you. They come when you call on them. Don't have canines in your home, or they will avoid that place. And if you doubt they exist, they move away. This is why it is so important as a student of Wu Sabat is to learn to develop yourself spiritually, because once you do and you learn to open your third eye, then you can make visual communication with them and you can hear them. You can hear them, you can see them, because they are able to astral project from their realm. So if they're existing in a fourth density or a fifth density or sixth density, they can astral project from their realm down to what we call the spiritual realms, where humans can astral project into the spiritual realm, and our ancestors can do the same thing, and you can communicate with them. Okay, you can communicate. They are able to hear you because you have a blood link connection to them. We have a blood link connection to them, but they can hear you. We can't hear them. That's why we do prayers, calling out to them, letting them know we know they exist. Now, all you have to do is develop yourself spiritually, right? The things we teach the rituals on how to learn to open up your third eye and make communication, so that you can make communication with them the way, all of us are talking to each other. We are able to hear one another because all of us are vibrating at the same density, so we can communicate. But when you're dealing with beings who are vibrating on these higher densities, like a fourth density, fifth density, sixth density, our physical senses can't pick that up. Our eyes can't pick that up. Our ears can't pick up those realms, those higher frequencies, unless you retune your body. The Nagato body, the African body, is designed to be able to pick up all of these densities naturally, but our genetics have been altered and messed up through years, millennia of mixing in, millennia of bad diet. So all of us inherited the bad genetics from our mother and father, who got it from their mother and father, and so on and so forth. When you mix your genetics, it alters your frequency and it disconnects you. And so the teachings of Wu Sabat that the master has been educating us about is teaching us how to correct our genetics, how to fix our genes, how to purify our genes, so that we can make actual communication with our ancestors. It's very important. I can't stress this enough, right? We can't stress this enough. The importance of Wu Sabat. The importance of Wu Sabat. We can't stress it enough. And we'll keep saying this. The last thing I want to address is on the path of being a Sabian, right? On the path of being a Sabian is a baptism. The baptism is about being born again. In order to make contact with the masters, you have to be born again, meaning you give up the old life for the new life. You give up the old life that we learned here in Western culture for the new life of how we live in Wu Sabat. Now, this is a scroll the master had put out, written back in the 90s on baptism. We have a whole ceremony on baptism, right? Of this process of giving up the old for the new, and part of that baptism, I've talked about it on many of my other lectures, is the principles, right? Living by the principles, learning the principles, living by the principles. In fact, my next lecture that I'm going to do will be based on, we're going to just do a lecture just on the core principles of Wu Sabat, right? The core cultural principles on Wu Sabat. The primary one is Ashak, or we say Ashuk, divine love. That's the first core principle. In order to call yourself a Sabian, Nawapian, you have to represent Ashak. Without Ashak, without divine love, it allows you to overcome all of the negative things that you see our people do to themselves, do to you, do to others. We have to overcome that self-hate. And the only way to overcome that self-hate, we're selling each other drugs, we're pimping and holding each other, we're gang banging, shooting each other, we're molesting each other, we're doing all of these disagreeable things, and it's causing us to fight and war with each other that you see all over the globe. And the reason why we're so quick to harm one another, because we lost the principle of Ashak. Once you get back into divine love, you won't look to hurt your family, your bloodline, your race. You'll look to help them. You look for solutions. How do we help this individual be better? What kind of conditions can we make them better? Not like the Mukasu, the Caucasians who just want to put people in prisons and let them rot. And this is a society we live in that perpetuates that negative behavior because it's all on TV. Everything that people go to jail for doing in this society, they promote it on TV. They promote murder on TV. You go to jail for that. They promote molestation on TV. You go to jail for that. They promote rape on TV. You go to jail for that. They promote lying and thieving and tricking people. Fraud on TV. You go to jail for that. Everything they say in the society that's bad to do, they promote it on TV. They can't make a movie without some kind of lust, with some kind of murder or deception going on, or they don't make any shows unless it's promoting some kind of negative attribute. So if this is a society that wants to really get rid of crime and want to take out the mentality of crime out of people's mind, why would you create a whole entertainment industry based on crime? That lets you know they don't want to get rid of crime, because unfortunately in this society, crime is a business. They make a ton of money off of crime. So if you want healing, if you want people to heal, the first stage to healing is Ashak, where you won't look to punish the people who commit the crime. You look to figure out, how do we solve this problem completely? But that takes Ashak. That's the first principle, being a Sabian. If you can't find love for your people, regardless of the bad behavior that they do, then that's your first step in being a Sabian. You can't be a Sabian without Ashak. It's impossible. Without Ashak, nothing you do will matter. That's the first core principle. And so, again, our next discussion is we're going to go over these core principles in detail so that everyone will understand what Ashuk is all about, right? Ashuk is the key to accomplish all our goals. Without Ashuk, there's nothing else we can do. So that is a core key to our principle that one must understand. Because when we say, what does it mean to be a Sabian? Well, without Ashuk, you can't represent none of the principles of what it means to be a Sabian. Someone who is thoughtful and cares. Someone who is helpful and honest. Someone who is responsible and hardworking. Someone who demands justice and honorable. Someone who is righteous and humble. Someone who is excited and cheerful. Someone who is loving and peaceful. Someone who is kind and considerate. And someone who is neat, clean, and orderly. That is what it means to be a Sabian. But it first starts with Ashuk. Divine love. So one must understand what that means. So when we go back to baptism, right? And what is the baptism? Being born again. And the first key to being born again is Ashak. And so I want to read right here, the master teacher writes, what is baptism? He says, answer, baptism is a Greek word meaning a form of ablution or baptism, which is washing, right? We see people who are being baptized, they put them in water and stuff like that. So it's basically the form of purification, and is an equivalent to the Arabic or Syriac word Shahada or Shahada. When I first became a student of the master, that's what I had to take. I had to take my Shahada. I took my Shahada in 1989. I remember it vividly. It was the summer of 1989. August the 9th, 1989 is when I took my Shahada, when I bore witness to change my cultural behavior. Because I like everyone else, I was raised here in the West. And in 1989, 3 decades ago, I took my Shahada to learn this right knowledge, to correct myself, because I understood at a young age this culture we're living is toxic, is poison. And I was like, all this lifestyle of Western culture, all it's going to do is perpetuate chaos in the black community. And that's all it's ever done. That's all it's ever done is perpetuate chaos. Look at the situation with Puff Daddy, R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, Michael Jackson, Prince. You know, I mean, the list is endless of so many of our people who so-called succeeded in this society, and it's been chaos for them. Their lifestyle has been chaos. You got Red Fox, you got Foxy Brown, you have Little Kim. Look what she's doing to her parents. You know, anyone who's seen what Little Kim used to look like and what she looks like today, it's sad. So baptism is about changing. It's rechanging your culture, the old way for the new way, the old way for the new way, or really the old way, which is the way of our ancestors, going back to that old way of how our ancestors lived, and giving up this new way that we learned from the Europeans, because their culture is toxic. It's toxic for them, which really then it's obviously toxic for us. Wu Sabat is here to repair all of that. So your Shahada, right? That's what I took my Shahada, like I said, in 1989, to change my ways, to re-educate myself culturally on what it means to be an African, a melanated, woolly hair melanated being on this planet, to get back to the ways of our ancestors, right? So it says, meaning Shahada means to bear witness or to witness something. In Aramaic is a daw, which means testimony, from the root word ad, meaning witness. So baptism is a ceremony in which an individual testifies or stands witness to the reality of, we say, pa pa'ut. But this book was in the 90s, so we have older terminology. El Elyon I, which means pa pa'ut, right? It's the all, the creative force. That's what you're bearing witness to, the creative force, absolute nature itself, that we're going to live according to absolute nature as opposed to unnatural nature of the Western culture. Here in Western society, everything is based on unnatural nature. They got artificial food. They give you an artificial heart. They got artificial brain chips in people's brains. Artificial intelligence. They want that to run humanity now. Everything with the European is artificial everything, right? That's adverse to nature, to natural nature, polluting the atmosphere because of this artificial stuff that's created that destroys the environment. Our culture is about being in tune with natural nature, not adverse to natural nature. So, which is Papa, which is the spiritual Shahada, which is the spiritual declaration and the spiritual side of being born again. You're born of the spirit, not just the flesh. You're born of the spirit, not just the flesh. Your spirit is your personality. Your spirit is your personality. You're going to change your personality, right? That's what Jesus told the secret disciple Nicodemus in the book of John, chapter 3, the born of fire and water. Fire is of the spirit, water is of the flesh. So you're going to physically change your ways, right? The physical things that you do, you're going to do different now. And you're going to spiritually change your ways, your personality, the way you think, how you see life. You have a new way of seeing life, where we're going to see life wanting to do things in harmony with nature, as opposed to not caring about anyone or anything except yourself, right? That heart center again, living according to your desires. You're going to get away from living according to your desires, and you're going to start focusing on living according to what's the right thing to do. Let's do the right thing. Let's do things. Let's do the right thing, right? Not things that's just going to benefit me, but what's not just right for me, but right for the whole. Something I talked about, this classes of decisions: class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4. Class 1 is something that feels good, is good for you, is good for others, and serves a greater good. That's a class 1 decision. Class 2 is something that does not feel good, but is good for you, is good for others, and serves a greater, serves a greater good. That's a class 2. It may not feel good, but it's good for you, right? Some food you eat don't feel good, it's good for you. Exercising may not feel good, but it's good for you. Then the class 3 is something that feels good, but it's not good for you, it's not good for others, and they don't serve the greater good. right? People feel taking drugs feels good, but it's not good for them. That's a class 3 based decision. Class 4 is something that does not feel good, not good for you, not good for others, and does not serve the greater good. That can be a lot of jobs that people have. It don't feel good. They do it because they feel they have no choice. It's not good for them. It's not good for others, and it don't serve the greater good. So the goal is a class 1 and class 2 based decisions that you want to condition yourself. You want to get away from the class 3, class 4 decisions. So he goes on to say, so your fathers, which is the Nathar, in the baptism ceremony, an individual also testifies and stands witness to how Pa'ut is reflected, right, as Pa'ut, that we may perceive the divine ethereal power that we are of that creative force, as a Nathar is above, and not bind partners with the creative force who you call on. So the goal is to acknowledge, because now, guys, I'm updating the language, because this scroll was written when we were using older biblical terminology, but we understand that is always talking about, when we say El Kalum back in the older days, which meant the all. We said that in the 90s. So we said that when we were Ansars in the 70s and the 80s, El Kalum, which also meant Allah, which meant the all. We now know the all in ancient Kemet and African culture, the terminology was Pa'ut. We said Pa'ut, right? And it's to live in harmony to Pa'ut. You don't bind any partners to the creative force, which is what humans have done. They started worshiping other entities within existence itself. And those same entities you're worshiping come from the creative force. You're supposed to acknowledge the creative force, absolute nature. Nature sustains all our lives, including these so-called advanced beings who are making themselves off as gods and goddesses that humans are worshiping today. Whether you call them Yahweh or Jehovah or Jesus or Buddha or Vishnu or Krishna, there are many different gods and goddesses that people are worshiping, and they're not acknowledging the creative force. Our ancestors used to know this. But since our people have been under this hypnotic spell of ignorance, spiritual ignorance, for the last 6,000 years, we've gotten away from this knowledge. So it's about the baptism. The baptism ceremony is an open declaration, an oath of faith, or faith, we say, of a person standing witness to the fact that Panatharu, right, the fact of the tablets of destiny and the human helpers. This reality is the key to the creation of all the universe. The person being baptized will no longer desire to be a part of the disagreeable world and want to start on their journey home to the abode of their fathers, which is called Risk. That's our home planet, the planet Morzak, or Risk. Okay? The name Risk is a derivative of the Ashotic Soretic Arabic root word razaka, meaning to provide, with a meaning of substance. So the goal of those who are baptized is to give up the old ways, the ways we learned here in the West, for the ways of our ancestors who exist in the higher abodes, back to the realm of Ilium, where the planet Risk exists. This is what our goal is, to make contact with the Riskians and say we want to live their culture, because they come from a very advanced high culture, as opposed to the destructive culture we learned here in the West. That's what the baptism is all about. So it's a declaration you make. You make that declaration that this is the new life you're going to lead. You're going to lead a life of righteousness. You know, it's not that it's going to be easy, right? It's not easy living with all these distractions and chaos, but, you know, that should go. That should go. So that's a lot. with all that being said, I wanted to cover some of these brief concepts and important concepts. What it means to be a Sabian. We've talked about this many times before, and it's important that we keep reminding us what it means to be a Sabian, what our goals are, what our objectives are, and we have so much more to talk about, family. But this is enough. Family, don't forget to promote, let people know that Wu Sabat is the way. Guide people to these discussions. It's an important, each one teach one. As I take the time out to share what I've learned from the master, it's your job to take what you've learned here from our discussions to your family and friends. That's how we change the planet, one person at a time. Each one teach one. If you dedicate yourself to trying to teach just one individual, and you teach that one individual to do the same, that's how we can change the conditions on the planet. Each one teach one. Our people do not understand that our original culture was living in harmony with natural nature, as opposed to living here in Western culture, right? Unnatural to nature. Everything that the Europeans do is adverse to nature, and that's why we see so much suffering and destruction on the planet. In fact, it's the cause of all these natural disasters that you're seeing on the planet. Earthquakes everywhere, tornadoes, hurricanes everywhere. That's the masters at work wanting to correct all of these bad things that's going on in the planet that humans are doing. Humans are destroying the earth. They're digging things that they should not dig up. They're building underground cities they shouldn't be building. The way they're treating the earth with absolute no respect. The way we do farming is disruptive to nature. All of the things that humans are doing, cutting down a rainforest, nature is fighting back. That's the Natharu. Our ancestors are fighting back using these cataclysms, basically using whatever they can use, hurricanes and tornadoes and earthquakes, whatever they can use to get humans to cut it out. That's the earth itself. Remember, we're connected to the earth as Patais, Nagaru people. We come from the earth, our great mother. And all humans have been doing is desecrating her. It must stop. And the only way it's going to stop is to get away from the culture that teaches us not to respect nothing in nature. Our culture, Wu-Sabat, teaches you to respect nature, to be in harmony with nature, not disrespect it. And keep in mind, we come from a very advanced culture, a very advanced society. Don't get tricked by the Europeans making you think that they're advanced with their cell phones and their laptop computers that I'm on, and their fancy cars and fancy boats and fancy airplanes. I'm not taking nothing from the accomplishments of what the Europeans have done, with our help, of course. I'm not taking nothing from those accomplishments, but what I am saying is don't let that cloud your mind like it clouds so many of our people's mind, because we too come from an extremely advanced society once we learn to make contact with our family, in the higher realms. So I hope this is a reminder, because that's why I did this discussion, as a reminder and to let you guys know that we're back with Wu Sabat, and we're going to continue this discussion. If you have any questions or comments, by all means, put questions in the comment section, and we're going to keep this, we're going to keep this party going. We're here. We are here for life, family. So, why do Muisar? Why do Muisar? Why do Muisar?